Here we are. Okay. Welcome to Stoney Place. This is my 40th episode, counting number 38 and 39, which I did for White Fairy TV, which was sort of a crossover because the first one was a April's Fool's video and the second one was sort of my exit interview I did because I did a weekly show for a year or 11 months. And after this, it was really draining energy, and like you have to always do a show, always prepare everything. And I really liked this, but after a year, you think you can't go on like this. So I feel like sort of if you're a rock band or something, and you do regular shows, and then at some point you'll only always play like this is my last tour shows. So this is what will happen here right now, which is I will do videos but not on a regular base. So let's see how it goes. And for this video especially, I will do everything in English. I already did this once for White Fairy TV. Yeah, where we did a list analysis for 40K tournament together with Niels. And so now this is my first really Stoney Place show in English. For this, yeah, this is the major change. And we have like 4 topics today. The first one being I want to present my army project Daughters of Khaine, which I'm currently still working on. Then there will be a short tournament report about the October Mini-Mosch from Games Workshop Berlin 2. And after this, the main part, like content-wise I guess, from the show is Alpha Strike Armies and how to deploy against them, where I collected some of the current strong Alpha Strike armies in the game and will show you how to deploy against them. And last but not least, Bonesplitterz Battletome. Since I did only lose one game because I did a huge mistake with my Daughters of Khaine in a 1000 points game, but at 2000 points I'm sort of undefeated. I thought of like I want to do not a top tier army next. And since I already have some Bonesplitterz from the time when they were great as part of the Grand Destruction lists, I decided to try out Bonesplitterz. And so I will look at the Battletome and analyze what is possible there and how I would build an army. Okay. So starting off, what happened during the last 6 months? Sort of nothing regarding the app. I tried to play, like in my last show I said it would be great if you have an app that like organizes all the stuff together, like tournament signups, real-time scores, player army lists, photos, and so on. And there is this Best Coast Painting app which sort of already does a similar thing, and this I found out even after the last show. So there is already something in the works there, and like I didn't just had the capacity to really show any progress there. I don't play 40K anymore right now. I also left my 40K club, so to speak, but I started playing Kill Team and it's quite fun. And then I started my Daughters of Khaine's army sort of immediately after the last like content video, episode 38, which was I guess mid of March, and had a lot of games with them. I tried out a lot of stuff, and yeah, this was my first Daughters list. And at that point I thought Drahiganeth would be the way to go, because of the retreat out of combat and charge again. So you could always like pick your fights, like pile in exactly as you want to fight, and by this like optimize your like touching points with the opponent versus their possible touching points. Like So you have always the optimized hitting, like the optimal fighting combination, and you could, like, with a retreat and pile in or charge again, you could like always go behind screens and stuff a bit if they were not set up properly. So this was the decision to go for Drachiganeth. And of course you play Slaughter Queen on Cauldron, which is like standard in all of my lists and has always been. Then I thought the Mindraiser is really a great spell, like -1 to rend, great, and even better if you do double damage. It's like really, really, really good. So I thought like everybody will try hunt my Medusa. So I first of all put her on a shrine. And since I then played 3 big blobs of 30 battle line units, I had to pick 3 queens to make a witch brew work and make them fearless. And with this, then of course the Slaughter Troop Battalion in Drachiganeth to minimize your drops. And then I decided to play, like, there was a decision to play shields because of the mortal wounds, which this army generally a bit lacks, like at least the one you're seeing here. So one time shields, and then I decided, okay, there are 2 possibilities. Either I place the shields on the Witch Elves, or I place the shields on the Sisters of Slaughter. And if I place them on the Witch Elves, then I have 3 units which all do 3 attacks. And if I place them on the Sisters of Slaughter, I have 1 unit which does 2 attacks, 1 unit that does 3 attacks, which are the Sisters with Knives, and 1 unit that does 4 attacks, which are the Witch Elves. And I decided that this would be my preferred choice. So I could like match my opponent's units better. So where I need more killing power, I place the witches. Where I want to survive more and do mortal wounds more, I place the sisters with the shields. Was my decision at the time. And then I really thought, okay, you need some ranged somehow, and the snakes I was not a big fan of, and of course I have to take the hard renders into the battalions, so I want a lot of them, and this leads to 20 hard renders. So this was the army I first started building. And yeah, and then I realized that their harpies, like intense, are not that good. They have a huge base size, which is like the biggest drawback, I guess, they have. So you can't really place a lot of them next to each other. They can't fight in 2 ranks and so on. And you usually don't need tens because you don't need the damage, and they really also don't deliver it. This is like 10 attacks on 3s and 3s. This is 5s with -2. So probably if you go for a tough character, they still have some sort of save. So you really can't kill a lot of stuff with this. Especially in Drachiganeth, where you don't have reroll to hit, like in Hegnar, starting from round 3. So I dropped the harpies down to 5s. And next thing I realized, I played a lot against undeads and demons, and they have always bravery 10, and therefore Mindraiser really didn't do that much as I liked, and therefore the Medusa was sort of always a bit safe because nobody really hunted her because the -1 rend is not that big a deal. On the other hand, the Medusa itself is still, I find, quite good, because if you really don't need the rend, you still can go with -1 to wound on an opponent unit, which is a good spell too. So the Medusa lost her shrine, and next thing was a bit, I was lucky and get 2 of the like small army starting collecting stuff for the daughters, which includes 1 of the shrines. And so I had 2 Hack Queens. The question is where to get my 3rd Hack Queen, and I choose Raging Heroes. They have, I think, a really good assortment of daughters heroes or squad leader models. The other alternative I just recently learned, just to not buy a third shrine would be Blood Bowl. The Blood Bowl team has a Witch Elf in it, and she looks quite nice. So this would be an alternative. Okay, and now after all of this playing around a bit, AOS 2.0 dropped, and therefore I modified my list, and this is it. So again, this Slaughter Queen and Cauldron is always set. This command ability is so huge if the opponent tries to like lock you down so you can't go on with your unit. And yeah, you can attack with it twice. This is really, really strong. Especially since you can like make all buffs work all the time. So next, the Medusa like lost her shrine. I switched and I dropped 10 Hydrenders, 5 and 5 in the units, and therefore I had some points to spare, and I decided to go with 20 and 20 Witch Elves. And give me a second, I will try something out, because the video is always fixed, or no, it's not fixed. This is the problem. Probably it's better now. No, it's not. Yeah. And during the time where I tried this, I found like 3 new blogs, which I now listen regularly, besides the Warhammer Weekly Standard, which is the Honest Wargamer from Rob, who was on Warhammer TV formerly, which does a great show. Then the Hey Oh Whoa Twitch started a show which he did regularly for a time. Now it's gotten less, but more quality. And the last one is Just Plain, which is audio only. From some guys in Liverpool, I guess, which do great content too. Especially they had some thoughts about how to organize tournaments. So if you want to, on the scoring there, if you want to have some ideas here, I highly would recommend listen to them. So hopefully this does it. It's probably a bit better. Okay, back to my list. Yeah, so this was the next iteration I tried. And from this on, I tried a lot of stuff in AOS 2.0. First of all, the Knight Incanter was sort of included because I thought 1 Dispel is automatically a huge thing. And Zinj was in my club or like store still heavily used, and therefore the Lens of Refraction, of course, because it was like really too good. I played around with this, but in the end dropped it, but not really sure. Probably I will include her later again. Then I tried out the Stormcast Ballistas, which I got some old Dark Elves ones on the Stormcast basis, and played with this. But the damage really, like, I always wanted to have something to deal with single models that I can't reach with my witches. So this was the obvious choice, but the damage didn't really satisfy me, so I dropped it again. Next thing probably was then Morathi. I tried around with her. She has some mortal wound damage potential with huge reach, but still you always have to so hard shield her, because I tend to want to use her in her human form, and she's always a huge target for the opponent as long as she's in human form. And I really didn't get the hang on how to find the right time to switch her. So I dropped her again. I tried around, which I found is a really good thing in the end. The Sorceress from the Dark Elves, which has a -1 to hit cast, which is great. She gets +2 to cast if you sacrifice one of her like colleagues. And therefore you have to play 10 Spearmen. I for this converted from the Flagellants, I guess they're called this in English too, Some like sort of slaves, they have this wooden thing around her neck, and so they look like slaves, and I have 5 spearmen and 5 of these flagellants, and the flagellants always are the ones who get sacrificed by her. And especially you want a sorceress and the +2 to cast if you want to play cogs in a daughter's army, which I find out is not really needed because the whole package is like 260 points, and this is close to another Witch Elves unit, and this looked for me that it's like always better. Then the Idoneth Deepkin book was dropped even before the 2.0, but so I thought of, okay, what can I pick from there? And the strongest thing is, of course, the Eels and the Soul Scryer to get behind the lines again of the enemy and like threaten him from behind, so he can't place his characters there. But sadly, this is like 420 points, so you can't really include it. If you want to have 6 eels, and 3 is just too few. Okay, so I dropped this. Then I played around with the Celestin Prime because he gives you some moral, like some bravery buffs, and the opponent some bravery debuffs, and therefore you could more reliably get off the Mind Razor. But in the end, like the Nagash lists and Archon lists and Tzeentch lists, at least in my store, were very dominant. So even though I managed to get the bravery solved with the Celestin Prime of the new Stormcast book, I then always failed to cast Mind Razor, so it didn't really help. So I decided Mind Razor will always be a bonus, and I will include the Medusa mainly to dispel opponent endless spells. Yeah, this is the main thing, because with Shackles and even a good placed Prismatic Palisade or Gravetide, you can like lock off spaces between terrain, so you can't really pass through with your witches, and this is like really bad for you, and therefore you have to have at least one caster to dispel one of the enemy placed endless spells. Next thing, then I realized that what a lot of people are still playing are the Stormcast Drakes, which have a really good save if they got shown light by the Lantern. And so they have a 2-up rolling ones. So the witches without rent can't do anything. Mind Razor might go off, but it's still very, very tough to chew through such a big monster then. And then the Sequitors became popular, like a 20 block with 3-ups rerolling without rent is really, really tough to do. And therefore I decided I really want to have a more reliable mortal wound output in my army. And so where can I get this? And one solution are the Evocators, the new ones. One solutions are you can play, of course, Eels without a Soul Scryer. You can play the Acalian King, you can play the Fighty Eidolon, you can play the Celestin Prime, and I calculated all of the stuff through and ended up with the snakes. So there's Blood Sisters. They really, really are the best ones to get mortal wounds in a Daughters of Khaine army. So I decided to play 20 of them because I really, really need mortal wounds against the Sequitors or similar hard targets. So I ended up with this list. Yeah, and of course, because mortal wounds are so like popular right now in the meta, from my point of view, you want to play Hagnar to have the better mortal wound save. Again, Slaughter Queen on Cauldron, Medusa, 3 Hag Queens, and then I play 3 Witch Elves, all with knives, and there is a small error. These are 20 Witch Elves here. Yeah, wait. Yeah, so 30, 30, 20 witch elves with knives all, and to counter this, like the 20 blood sisters, which do rend and mortal wounds. And then I have like 130 points left, so hard renders, one group is always great. So the opponent often holds one objective with one hero, so you can just jump in and grab it from him, which really gives you an edge. They are really good. I probably want to include a second unit, but I'm not sure where to find the points for here. Yeah, only problem with this is you are really high drop. You're like 10, I guess. Yes, 10 drops. And so it might happen to you that you get alpha struck, like somebody alpha strikes you. And then I had some games like this, even with range stuff from Siege Flamers, and then you use probably 2 units of witches, and then the game gets really tough. You can still manage to win it, but it's tough. So I thought I want to have 50 points spare to get 1 command point to pass 1 test automatically. Yeah, and this is the list I will play at the 2 upcoming tournaments, which will happen in November. There is one at the 17th November in Rostock. There are 14 slots. They are all sort of taken, but not everybody has paid up. So you might be able to still sign up for it if you pay like quickly. There are a lot of local players. They play with fixed realm rules, which I think is the way to go, but no realm spells. So you get the 1 spell, but not the 6 spells. And the command ability you get. And yeah, so the first game they want to do is in the Realm of Life. So you here have the spell with the D3 impact hits and the command ability to do it sort of again. And plus 1 wounds for 1 hero. So this is really a small modification. I don't think it comes into play very often. And the first mission is Better Path of Valor, where you have the 6 markers in the smaller, like if you use the Games Workshop terrain base stuff. Then on each tile in the center of the 6 you use, there is 1 marker, and you deploy 18 inches apart. So this means you have 3 inches in front of each marker to shield it, or you say, okay, I want to go behind the marker, and then you probably have to place a lot of models there to yeah, to still keep it and don't let it burn by the opponent. Yeah, pointing is like depends on how long you occupied it, and yeah, I really like this mission because it has a lot of tactical, like where do I place what, how do I shield my markers, and yeah, it's quite a good mission, I think. Next mission is in next game in A Realm of Metal. So you have the cast the spell where you have to roll a 7 to half the opponent's move and reroll once if he has a armor save of 2, 3, or 4. And the command ability to give a unit a 6+ feel no pain. And in the hero phase, you roll 1 dice on a 6 up. You can give out -1 armor for 1 unit that is in cover right now. So it's really not to be in cover here. And for witches, it's not that bad. They have usually a 6 up. So going to a 5 up, you still have, like, it's more severe if you have a sequitur unit to get this -1 on. And here we play shifting objectives. So you deploy on the short board edges, 24 inches away, 3 markers in the center, and one is always worth a bit more. And so this is like always you really fight at the center, and fighting armies like Daughters really, like, I think, excel here. Not that they don't excel at the mission before, but here it's like more easy because you don't really have to care about your backfield. Game 3 is in the realm of fire, so you have the fireball, which does 1d3, d6 mortal wounds. If the unit has 1, 2 to 9 or more, 10 or more models in it. You can ignite a terrain piece as a command ability that then blocks line of sight and does mortal wounds on models in it or units in it. And here they picked the realm special rule. If a flying unit moves more than 6 inches on a 4+, it gets 1 mortal wound. On a 6+, it gets d3 mortal wounds. So this would affect by hard renders, but not hugely, I guess. I don't think I move them that much after they get deployed. And we play here the diagonal deployment, and which mission is it? It's the mission where there are like 5 markers in this, one in the exact center, and then up and left and right, up and down, left and right. There are 4 more markers, and if you hold the center, you get 2, and the 2 opposing, if you control 2 opposing ones, you get 3 points, and otherwise always 1 point per marker. So also, I think a really good mission from the design, because you have to fight at a lot of places, which is sort of distributed quite huge over the table. So you really have to think of where to put what of your army. Yeah, so overall, I really like this tournament pack. I'm a bit sad that they don't include the realm spells. But this is their first tournament and they just want to try it out. And like I said, there are a lot of local players, so probably they have not that experience with the realm spells. For me personally, like my daughter's army doesn't usually hugely benefit from the realm spells. Okay, in fire, it's a better version of Mindraiser, which is really good. But all the other ones, I only have 1 caster. He has no bonus to cast, so this was the way to go for my army. I thought, like, there are so many armies out there that really do well in Magic, and like I can't compete with them, so I just try not to, and I just have to have 1 wizard to dispel enemy endless spells. So then there is the second tournament, which is exactly 6 days earlier. So the Rostock one is on a Saturday, and the Leipzig one at 11th November is on a Sunday. And they have more places, but the same amount of signups, but from really quite different people. Like 2 other guys from Berlin will drive together with me there, but all of the other 11 players are completely different, I guess. And from my feeling, in Leipzig there are more competitive because there are some people coming from further apart, like Kassel or Munich, and I think it's a tougher competition. But the tournament has some really strange rules. They don't allow double turns, they don't have any realm rules, they don't have any random terrain, which speeds up everything a lot. But the double turn thing I really don't like, because like, yeah, you really don't like if it happens against you, but you can tailor your army to how often it will happen against you. Because what I usually did when I played and I had to choose if I want to go first or second, I like always gave my opponent the first turn, even if this was this shooty army that like really killed like 30 witches from 2 units, like 15 and 15. So the 2 units fled because I had no command points. But even then, I really like to have the chance to have the double turn first in the game, or the first double turn in the game. And this is the case when you give your opponent the first turn, then you will have the first double turn if there is any in the game. And so you are on the safe side. And so you could like always get around this. And even if I like had the chance to get the double turn, like in turn 2, I quite often don't take it and give my opponent the turn, wait again, and probably then take it from 2 to 3. But even then, yeah. So then if you play like this, you're really on the safe side and have no problems with a double turn. Just my point. And if you are like likely to have the double turn against you, you just have to plan more cautiously. Okay, so they do 3 games again. The first game will be 1,600, then 1,800, then 2,000 points, and you have to have like a stock army of 1,250 points. And for the first game, you can add some 350 points, and then the 350 points you don't have to use any more of these models, but you can. And for the next game, you can add 550 points, which can be completely different. And last game, 750 points. So this would mean I drop the snakes in the first game and play a second unit of Hydrenders of 5. And in the second game, I only play 10 snakes and lose the 5 Hydrenders and only play 5 left over. And in the last game, I played the list I just showed. This is, I guess, the best way to do it for me now. So there are 3 missions which get played in random order, which are custom, which is a bit weird. And there is the first game is you deploy on this short table edges, and you have 2 markers on the center line which can only be taken by heroes, and you deploy 24 inches apart. Second game, you deploy on the long edges, so standard deployment, 3 markers on the center line, and you deploy 24 inches apart. And then there is the third game, which is diagonal deployment, 1 marker in the center and 1 on each side, and 24 inches apart again. So quite like sort of vanilla missions, I would say. And I would hope that for further tournaments they like really jump on how the game is meant to be played, because I have the feeling it's more fun if you pick the realm rules. Like I wouldn't pick like Realm of Beasts right now, because it's really silly with the bring your monster along, and I wouldn't pick Realm of Fire right now because of the too good Mindraiser for everybody. But besides from that, I find if you pick the realm rule itself, you can play in all of the other realms quite easily and allow all of the rest of the spells. And yeah, this was my experience. Yeah, and I would like to play the more like diverse missions from the new rulebook. But still, I don't think this is a bad thing. I really like the tournament. Yeah, let's see how it goes. And then there was last Saturday, the 3rd tournament we're talking about today, which was one of the Mini-Moschs, which are held by sort of my local store, which is the Games Workshop Berlin 2. And this is 1,000 points you can spend on models, and only on models, and all the points you don't use are wasted. And then you have 250 points you can only spend on endless spells, battalions, and command points. So again, quite a strange ruling, but I find this works quite well. The reason why they did this was last time they said they wanted to play between 1,000 and 1,250 points, but they wanted to force the players to use the new stuff, so like the endless spells and the command points. So this was the game. Again, 3 games, but yeah, you play only in 48 times 48 inches. There were 20 players attending, which is quite huge for such a small store tournament. And my list for this was this. So I decided I wanted to play a battalion. So and the slaughter troop is too expensive to play if you flesh it out completely. 300 for the sisters, 300 for the sisters, 80 and 80 For the hard renders, so you are at 760, and then I want to have 2 Hag Queens and a Medusa, and then I'm over at 1000. So I switched to the Cauldron Guard, which is quite good too, I guess. Yeah, and I had the models for this because in that case, if I would play the Slaughter Troop, I don't have 60 Sisters of Slaughter, first of all painted completely, and second of all with knives. I have 1 unit with shields right now. So yeah, I played the Cauldron Guard, 2 times Life Takers, 2 times full witches with knives, 2 Hag Queens and a Medusa, which played out quite well, I think. And this is the same list I played at the last tournament with the same rules. And there I lost my onlyest game. I lost with Dodgers due to like really underestimating the distraction move. The distraction move on a Ragnarok spider is really, really crazy. Like it was in his deployment zone behind some house or tower or something, and I thought, okay, what should happen? And then he just retreated from I guess he retreated from combat with a distraction move, or he killed the models before, and retreated out of the combat or moved from the combat over the house. 12 inches or so, moved again 12 inches, charged my Hag Queen, burned the objective. It was really crazy, and yeah, this was my underestimation, and therefore I lost this game. Yeah, and I play in this list Cogs and 1 command point, just because I don't know what else to do with the last point. And the Cogs are really good because the Medusa here has the Shadow Stone, so I can, I guess, reroll once. And I get them off sort of more reliable because I play a battalion and have this artifact. Yes, and now game 1 was against one of the guys. Like we played as a tiebreaker in the end, strength of schedule, which I proposed to the store owner, which he quite liked. Though there were quite a few like grudges at the beginning, and I grudged one of the guys I will drive to Rostock and Leipzig with. He played a Plague Furnace, 2 Plague Priests, a Vermlobe Corruptor, and 3 times 20 Plague Monks. And the mission was Gift from Heavens. And yeah, so he had and 1 battalion. I don't know which one of the Skaven ones fits this. But no matter, I had less drops than him, so I placed my 2 units like next to each other at my front line and in between my 3 characters, and left the Harpies in reserve. And he deployed sort of similarly. He placed his 3 Plague Monks next to each other at the line, and his like characters sort of split up between the 2 in the 2 like where the units touch. And then he ran his reds forward, and he moved them so far that with a 6 running, which I just picked for a command point, I had an easy charge. I charged 2 of the Plague Monk units with the witches, which were completely buffed with the Exploding Sphinxes, the Mind Razor. Yeah, so I really slaughtered his 2 troops, and this sort of was already the game because there wasn't enough left to stand off against 2 units of Daughters. Then there was some strange thing happened, which I was quite happy to pull it off. His Plague Furnace had this Doppelganger Cloak, so if he charged into witches, I probably wasn't able to attack him. But inside of my witches, there was hidden one of my hags. So I activated the hag first, piled in like sort of nothing because she was completely blocked by my witches. And then he had to activate his cauldron. So he attacked the witches, killed some, I don't care. And then the witches could attack the cauldron. So if you have this Doppelganger Cloak hiding your hags inside, or your some characters inside your units, is quite a good thing because you can then activate them. They probably, the furnace has, I guess, some 2 or 3 inch attacks. So he attacked the hag, but she survived. But by this you can like make sure that you get attacks on it probably, which you otherwise wouldn't. Second game was again against some guy I quite know from the store for his siege list, and he played a lot of change, Gaunt Summoner, and 2 times 10 pink horrors, and this is it. And then he had like sort of, I felt like sort of all of the endless spells except probably the purple sun in his 250 points, and he deployed his 2 horrors next to each other and his Gaunt Summoner and a lot of chains between them. And like in the last game, and this is sort of what this whole video aims at the end, is like I wouldn't have placed the Plague Monks next to each other. I would have played 1 screen up front and probably 2 behind. And so nobody here in the scene really knows, I guess, how really to play with screens. And this would have helped my first opponent a lot if he would have played with a screen, I guess. And again here, he didn't place his horrors around his characters, but placed them next to them, so the heroes were in the center. So again, he has 4 drops. I give him first turn, very well knowing that he will do the thing he always does. He like jumps forward with his Gaunt Summoner by summoning a Balewind. And this you can do. You can summon the Balewind, I guess, 1 inch apart from the Gaunt Summoner, and then the Balewind model is the Gaunt Summoner, and therefore you can measure from the Balewind. So he gains a lot of inches for this. And second, he casts the mirrors to extend the reach of the Gaunt Summoner cast, and he cast it with the Lot of Change. And he like burns his dice by this, his siege dice. Like he wants to really make sure this all works. And by this he like really rolls very well with the Gaunt Summoner spell and kills like 15 or 13 of my witches. Which is quite bad, but still okay. This was my knowing that this will happen, and I happily agreed to it, because now I'm in the space where I can decide if there is a double turn or not. And now I have to spend my command point, which I exactly for this scenario have. So no more witches run away. I have sort of 17 left in the 1 unit. And the rest, but for the rest, he sort of does nothing. Like this was his only thing he did in the first round. And then I decided to drop, and this was the mission with the 3 shifting objectives in the middle of the board. So I placed my witches on the side where, on this board half where he dropped his, I gave him first drop. So I placed my witches on the side he drops. And so, yeah, on the other board half, there's a marker which I can't reach, but I have 2 times the harpies in reserve. I drop with the harpies, grab the 1 point, run my witches to the 2 other points, and drop the other harpies in front of the Gaunt Summoner, make the charge, even though I didn't complete Cogs, of course, because he dispels it again with a dice from the pool. And then I make like 4 hits with them and 4 wounds with them, which would be 8 damage. And he sort of decides to roll this because he had not that many dice left, but I guess it would have been enough. So, but after this he would have no dice left. And then he says, okay, I can roll this. And this was, I guess, a mistake. Because the harpies kill the Gaunt Summoner. He doesn't make his saves. At least not 3 of them. So, and this already took a lot of pressure off me. And again, I guess I win the roll off and give him the next turn to stay ahead of the double turn. He deletes some of the witches, but I guess the game is sort of done by this. And this is again a matchup where you really need Hagnar. Without Hagnar, it would have been much worse. Yeah, and the last game I have against Philip, which I have the most games in the last month, and he played a Spirit of Torment, Guardian of Falls, Tomb Banshee, 40 Chain Rest, 20 Chain Rest, 10 Grimghast Reapers, and 2 Chain Ghasts, and the Formation of the Condemned. And again, I have less drops. So for this, what we could do is, give me a second. There is a picture of this in the internet, and I will search for it. Give me some seconds. Yeah, I can activate now this. Like you see here, these are the Mini-Moschers. This is a picture. I can make this probably bigger. Yeah, of the plague monks that ran forward. And here you see my 2 witches. Then we have some more pictures here from other. Yeah, there were a lot of painted armies. There was some speed painting. It was quite a fun event because this was the day where Armies on Parade happened. My question is here. This was my deployment. As you see, my witches and my heroes are painted, but my harpies are not. And I changed the models. I really didn't like the sickles. I don't know if this is an English word. In German, it's sichel. Like this short boat things. So I bought off a bits side some of the Blackguard halberds, the heads, and placed them on the spears of the Heartrenders. So these are my life takers now. They have halberds. Yeah, and okay, I know he would like leave some of his chain rasps or how the guys Grimghast in reserve, and will like to strike my my witches, and he has a tendency to do, from my feeling, I know the statistics and so on, to do really well with this rolling of 10. So I really didn't want to like get my 2 units of witches obliterated, and therefore I couldn't place my Heartrenders in reserve. And what I did was I placed my Heartrenders up front, placed here in a bow behind, like here, so in this fashion, the others stand. So he really can't get to the witches. And here on top to the corner, it's like 9 inches, so he can't place anything there. He has to place stuff probably over here somewhere, and then the charge is like over 12. He can't really make this. Even with piling in, my spacing here is big enough that even if he makes the 10 charge, he can't go probably behind them because they are 40 mil base. And if he places behind them, then he can't pile in towards the witches, even in a second thing, because he would stand here, and if you place like 5 and something behind them, 5 inches, then he's out of the witches are out of 3. So even with a 10, he can't reach the witches, and this is the important thing, and how screens work, which I will explain later. Yeah. This was his my deployment, and again I gave him first turn. He ran his Banshee, and this was the mission where you have 4 objectives, like and they are in the middle between the Games Workshop boards, like to here to there. So every one of us, of course, hold his home objective. He placed his Grimghast Reapers, Chain Gasps, and Guardian of Souls, Tomb Banshee. No, like the Banshee was on the board, and probably one of the other characters, I don't know which one, at his marker. Then ran forward the Reapers to the 1 marker and the Banshee to the other marker that were on the line in the middle. And so he pointed like 3. So it was my turn. I ran. No, he held back with his Grimghast Reapers. He only ran for the Banshee to capture 1 objective. So I ran forward with the Harpies, charged her. Luckily, like for him, he survived this. or probably it's statistically even, but still, and ran forward with the Harpies on the other side to capture like 3 points. So I was one in the lead, but still I managed to place the Harpies on the one side up front, so he couldn't deep strike behind them to the witches because they filled out the space. And then the other side, I made a long chain sort of from the middle marker, which I barely touched with one model in 6 inches, to the bottom. It's like to my deployment zone. So even there, he couldn't get anywhere to my witches. So okay, now he had to come forward. He comes forward with his Grimbass Reapers, Chain Gasp, and so on. Destroys both units of my Harpies with the help of the Banshee Scream. And at this point, then he still has his 2 units of Chain Rasp and one of his characters in reserve. And I have to make a move. I buff up my witches with the rerolling Feel No Pain and place one of the units as a screen in front of the other. And by this, charging like all of his stuff that is on the board. Like the Grimgast Reapers, the Banshee, I guess the Chain Gasps he helped a bit back, so I couldn't get them because they were in front of his objective. But all the stuff he had committed, I charge. I failed to delete the Banshee, but delete the Grimgast Reapers. And this is the moment, of course, he, and again, score 3 points as he did. He now drops all of his Chain Rasps, tries to charge, rerolls everything, and gets 1/9 charge roll off, which is like sort of average, I guess. Really plays for the 10 charge, but didn't get it. Especially his 40 unit didn't get the charge. So this was sort of the game. And yeah, Philip tends to play a lot of this lackluster armies. Like if you make the 10-inch charge with the Nighthound, you really win games. But without, it's probably much more tough. Or the other list he plays is the Weird Fist, where he always, like, if he is lucky, stomps 3 of my characters just before the game begins, and I can't do anything about it. Or he doesn't roll the foot for 2 turns in a row, and then the game is sort of sealed. Yeah, and by this I win the this mission again, so I've won all the 3 games, and there were secondary objectives in place, which were the 12 objectives Games Workshop recently published. And you could pick 3 of them for each game, and you could achieve all 3 of them. And I managed to pick and achieve 9. Like in all 3 games, I always achieved all of them. I can't remember what I picked by top of the head at the top of my head right now. So I scored maximum at the table, but since my Harpies were not painted, I get only 1 out of 6 possible secondary soft score points, because like you could vote for your most fun game of the 3 and for your most best painted army you played against. And yeah, I only get 1 point out of those 2, and therefore I placed 3rd. Yeah, you saw the girl that won. If you paid attention to the pictures I just showed, quite a huge trophy they manufactured there, so really cool thing. Yeah, so good tournament. I really liked the games. It was really fun, especially the last game against Philip, who I think played quite well. I couldn't see anything like I wouldn't have done different. The only thing is he failed his 10-inch charge. You could argue probably to place something on the board, but I am not that experienced to make that call to say this is better than the way he did it. Okay, so now we come to the main part of the show, which is Alpha Strike Armies. And therefore, I have collected 7 armies I want to show to you and think a bit about how you could play against them. And the first one is sort of a first edition army, which is wait, we make this big again. Godric Scorefist. This worked very well in the first edition and was one of the sort of, I had the feeling in the first edition there weren't that many first strike armies. There were the KO for a time, like Clowncar. And then there was Godric Scorefist, I guess. And this is quite easy, it's 2-drop. So you play Godric, you play Gorefist, and 4 times 6 Gore Granters, or you shuffle it around like you as you like. And the great point about this is you probably will go first with 2 drops. You get the Gorefist move, you get the destruction move for Godric, hopefully. And then you charge like 24 Gore Granters first turn in your opponent. And then you walk, of course, with Godric to get +2 attacks, or in the current ruling, probably you have 2 command points in this list as it states there. So I don't think it works with Godric anymore, because the Godric thing might be limited to once per game. So still, you get a lot of extra attacks, and everything that is touched by the Gore Granters is meant to be deleted. Then this army wins games, and if enough survives, then this army most likely will lose. So I want to try out something completely new now, which is I close this, stand up, and probably move the camera up a lot, and move my nice background aside. And here, probably as you can see, I have a whiteboard. And so what you usually do is like, sadly, I had ordered like quite a huge amount of neodymium magnets, but they didn't arrive in time, so I can't use. Good call. Green is not a good thing to do if you have the background thing active. So green you won't see that much. What I would have liked to do is like have magnets and move this around. This whiteboard is from IKEA, so you can get it there, I guess, quite cheap. And it has like sort of the optimal size. It is 50 by 70 centimeters. And the usual board is 48 by 72 inches. So if you just convert an inch to a centimeter, this board sort of works quite good. And this is what I will do now. So like if you think of, you have a deployment zone here, and you have a deployment zone here. You could think of like, okay, you place the Godric thing here. Probably green isn't a good color to pick to mark things again. Same reason. So we make this red. Yeah, it's probably a bit. Let me take the black one. This should be better. And probably we should turn this a bit apart. And okay, next deployment zone here. Okay, and then you place your Godric here in the center, and you have where are they? Here Gore Granters. So this would be probably the deployment. And now if you place your army top here against the Gore Granters, what you really must do is just build a screen. So you take your whatever you have, like from me it would be some witches, probably 20. And with 20 witches I would place them, this is probably already too big. Something like this, and place my whole army in here. And if you keep a 3-inch distance, he can't reach you, because what he can do is he moves the Gork Runters down 9 inches, he moves them again 9 or 15 inches, is it? I guess 15 inches, he moves in again 9 inches, so it's 24 moved. He has all the Gork Runters at your line, and then he charges. He will make the charges because Iron Jaws, and he has the walk on. And like if the first unit now of Gork Runters is in front of your part of the screen, and probably he manages to delete the screen at some point, and then he might like pile in with his other units 3 inches, and then he has probably a 1-inch reach for attacking. So if you keep this line 4 inches apart from this, then he just can't reach you, and therefore you're safe. And if you play like Gentlemen's, you might just tell him, okay, I will do this, so this isn't possible, and then he can measure and say, okay, it's not possible, or he just trusts you that you placed everything all right. And then usually this is how we play at the store in the friendly mode. Okay, I place my stuff in here 4 inches apart of the first line, so you can't get to me. Done. Yeah, and this is why the Iron Jaws sort of always fail. If you play them like this. Like if you play this list, I guess against a good opponent, he just places 1 screen here, and this might be witches, like 1 unit, or it might be Ungors, which are even crazier, or it might be Chaos Marauders, or it might be Skinks, or whatever you like. Probably you also already have enough to build the screen like as a castle, like this, wide forward, depending on how much models you have for a screen. And this already solves the whole thing, because then he can move forward, charge you, delete this 1 screen unit, but this is like, even this is 200 point of witches, which is fairly expensive for a screen unit. 120 points for 20 Marauders is as good, or 120 points for the Skinks is as good. So he deletes the screen, and nothing more will happen. And then you can like charge back all his stuff as you like, because your really army is here, and you really get buffed up everything. He has spent all his command points, probably or not, you don't really care, to get rid of the screen. And yeah, you can like pick Gordrak apart and delete him. Most likely in some way or form, probably he could screen him, but then he doesn't do any damage. So there's no win for the Iron Jaws after this. The only thing they could play it right is like, okay, now you castled, then I give you first turn, and then you have to extend your castle probably. And this is what I did with the Harpies in the last game against Philip, like extend your screen and try to make some points and try to make him commit his stuff. And if this happened, then you can always countercharge. But even then, the Iron Jaws have more of a game, but it's really tough for them, because the thing they have is this pre-game or a pre-turn move, and this is sort of wasted then. They won't do enough, I would say, if you can play the screen right here. So this was the first unit to do, and now I can go shortly here and show you the I have to reapply the curtain to show you this. Yeah, this is the more updated version of this, which is the now I'm a bit low, which is the AOS 2.0 version, I would say, where you can use the Iron Suns Battalion or Bloodtooth as you like. You can play Chronomantic Cogs with a Weird Notch Shaman, and therefore you probably have to play 10 Art Boys in the Iron Fist, because otherwise you don't have enough models to get it off reliably. The Iron Fist with a Weird Notch Shaman. Then you play, of course, a Mega Boss and Maw Crusher, and not 24 but 18 Gork Runters, and they don't move like 15 up front but only a d6, but this usually is enough together with the cogs to make it work. Your mega boss is even a bit more safe to make the destruction move because of the Weirdnob Shaman. Yeah, this is an army you could play for fun, but it has sort of the same shortcomings. If you look at this, again, you have one big Maw Crusher. The God Grunters don't, the Art Boys don't do that much to the game. They just sit back, and it's this more or less the same thing. So the only thing you really need is one unit to make a castle around you, deploy 4 inches in, and sort of you are safe. If he gives you first turn, then you probably need this ×2. Then you can move out your first screen and place a second screen inside. So what I then would do is probably, again, 4 inches apart, something like this. So he gets the second turn. He gets the like you get the first turn. I move my screen out. First screen, second screen. So even if he gets a double turn in the first turn, he charges this one, deletes it. His second, he takes probably the double turn, charges this unit, maybe deletes it, and then still all of my stuff is in here. So again, this would be meaning to me losing two units of witches at worst case. But 2 units of witches I can compensate for, I guess. Like, I tried it out, this works. I still have 1 unit of witches and the snakes. Yeah, and then again the deal is closed against him. One thing probably to mention here is, if you want to move your second unit through the first unit, when you deploy such chains of units, you have usually something like this. And this is always the distance up for discussion. There are 2 possible ways to think of this. First off, you can say, okay, my opponent, like this is like a 25 mil base. I do 25 mil, or I deploy 24.9 mil apart. This would mean the opponent, if he has 25 mil bases, can't push through. If you say 24.9, and this you can just tell your opponent and measure it out over the huge chain and make sure you don't overstretch it, because now you have like sort of 5 centimeters times the number of models, and then everything is fine, and then you just remove 1 small piece, and then the opponent can't push through. The best he can do actually is like he can like place his model in here, but then it would touch both, and sort of he can't get through. For this, you just make then to make sure that if his model is sort of at this, he can sort of pile in 3 inches to here. So you probably have to play 3 inches of the back side of your unit. If he can't fly, which we will discuss later. So the advantage is the opponent can't move through even with 25 mil bases if you have 2.49 centimeters gap. But the downside is you can't push through. So the other way to do it is like you can leave this space at 2.45 centimeters, which is an inch, or sort of an inch. And this would mean that this 25 mil bases can push through. So if he locks this unit in combat somehow, for some reason, like an easy thing to do is like charge here with some tough guy, and then you can't, like this unit is locked. And when it is locked, like if he charges your screen at this end with 1 unit with his guys here, all of this model can't attack, and if he makes it right, you probably can't even retreat, because he places 3 models around this and this 1 model, and therefore you can't get it out. And if he doesn't do enough damage compared to the locked models, probably here are some more too, so probably he like really sorts this out and knows the most damage I will do will kill 2 of his models. So he would lose probably 2 models. Okay, you pick these apart or away. Then this model is still there. It's locked because 3 models are really close next to each other, so you can't retreat out of combat. And at this point, you really want to be the space between your models here 2.54 centimeters, because all of the other units are here inside your screen. And you probably want to get ahead to the board, and you can't because you have placed your models 2.49 millimeters apart, and you can't push through because the opponent couldn't push through. So what you have to do now is probably move 1 up and make gaps of 2.54 centimeters so you can push through yourself. And between these 2 values, you always talk to your opponent, okay, my models are either this or that apart for my screen. Either I want to move through or I want to prevent the opponent to move through. Okay, so much for the Iron Jaws. Next thing, which makes everything a bit more complicated, is the is a ghost list. By the way, I picked some of them, of course, from some lists of the internet. I guess this won a major tournament. There are the 3 named characters of the Nighthaunt, Kodos Valentia and Lady Olinda Ragnar, and the Knight of Shrouds on Steed, the Guardian of Swords with Lantern, pretty standard. Spirit of Torment, okay. And then 30 Grimcast Reaper, 20 Grimcast Reapers. And he can like deep strike them. And the problem with this is, so what might happen now is the following thing. If you don't play carefully, and this is what I already sort of talked about during the battle report of the Mini-Mosch, you place your models like this. He deep strikes from up here, probably rolls a 9 to get in, or a 10, I don't care. So he places his model 0.5 inches apart, which is enough to get in melee. And then at his pile-in time, he can pile in 3 inches. So this is 1 inch, this is 0.5, so he gets to here, because his own base size with the Grimdarth Reapers is, I guess, 25 mil. So you have to get ahead of your own base size. This is the 1st inch. The 2nd inch is the one of the screen, and then you have half an inch, which you kept away from the model. So by piling in, you get here from 2.5 to 2.49, and you can jump behind. And if you rolled a 10, then you could go again 3 inches to here. So what you have to leave as a space is half an inch, 3 inches. So this would mean it's 4.5 inches and 1 probably. And so if you say, okay, my next unit here is 4.51 inches behind behind my screen, he really can't get in to you. Yeah, and this sort of works. Only thing might be he deploys 9 inches apart, then piles in, rolls a 12. So this would mean 3 inches, so he could land 2 inches behind this one, so 1 inch apart to this. But yeah, so in this case you would have to, if you want to be on the safe side, and even if he rolls a 12, which sort of you probably must not, but just to be real safe, he is 0.9 inches apart, has this base size, so he comes to 4.99, so you go to 5 inches apart, as I said already at the start of the video. And with 5 inches these 2 units apart, you are safe. from the ghosts. But you need a lot of models to make such a huge screen, which is the downside, and you probably don't have. Okay, next list. What do we have here? Okay, the next list I want to show you are the eels. So again, you could play the Tidecaster. I quite like the Tidecaster version of this because this means you have high tide at round 2. You can hopefully let the opponent start, so you have the hopefully probably even the double turn to 2, and then yeah, you can really do a lot of damage. And I need to get my Deepkin book. So you have 2 times 9 Mossar Guard in this. You could play probably 963, but I like this version. You come in, you hopefully have the cogs up, you get +6 on the charge for the 2 Scryers, for the 2 Mossar Guard. You can and probably have cogs up, so you get +8 on the charge, which is huge. So you get to everything, to everywhere. And one important thing about the eels, so the Mossar Guard is 1 time per battle at the beginning of the fight phase. You can do blah blah blah. So you roll a die for each model. On a 3+, a unit in 3 inches gets 1 mortal wound. On a 6+ D3. So you sort of with 9 eels do probably 8 mortal wounds, which is usually enough to kill off a character. So, and if you have this 8-inch charge plus, you still can't only charge models that are 12 inches away. So what usually happens is well, what usually happens is wrong pen. The eels have a similar huge base, let's say like this, and you're 9 inches apart. With +8 to charge, you most likely will be able to jump behind this, and then you have here again 3 inches of range for your eel shock. So and to prevent this, you really have to work. So you again have to have 2 screens in this case. So first of all, you have your first screen, then the eels, they jump over, but if you would like make here a small space, so they probably can get to the second unit, but not behind it. This is the important thing. With +8, this would mean this is you really have to like place a lot of models here. So huge screens, and then you can place your characters inside, because they probably can't even land here. They can't land behind, because even with +8, the maximum they can change is 20 inches. So you have to have here sort of 10 inches to cover, which is a lot of space. But with 5 ranks, you can probably do this. Probably draw this a bit different. So you always leave like 1 inch in between, and then you like really fill this out. So as you see, you need a huge amount of number to prevent the eels to make the shock on your character here. And this is sort of not really working, I would say. So the other way around is, and for this, I watched a lot of these like ancient battle videos that are up on YouTube, like what did Julius Caesar do, or Hannibal, or there are a lot of them. And you have to think of like the blocks, they move around on the battlefield, and you can do sort of the same thing as a general. So what I would prefer to do instead is like you have here 9 inches and 9 inches, 9 inches, 9 inches. So probably like this. Roughly up until here, and probably. So if you deploy your screen like this would mean like the closest point you can deploy his eels is here. Because you have your backfield 9 inches away from your board edge, so he really can't come in here. And you have here 9 inches, so he can't even deploy in the corner. So you have to have this small, like 2 models diagonal end of the line. And then you are completely safe to deploy whatever you like here, because he really can't go in with a flanking eels unit. And then you would have to stretch this. And you probably don't need, like, you could also place just one character back here and move the middle part up or stuff like this later in the game. And by this, you really like hurt the eels. They can't go where they need to, which is probably your expensive unit, which they want to first strike in the middle. What they still can do is like charge in the screen and really delete the screen. And if you have witches, this is probably bad. So what you can do sort of to prevent this is like really, if you have 30 witches, you place like 10 of them here, 10 of them here, and then you stretch out 20 in this direction, 20 in this direction. So the first 20 you will remove after they have charged you here, these ones. And of course these ones don't get the armor save because it's not far reaching enough, but you don't care, they already have -2 rend on the charge. But they will get, if you place your cauldron back here, the 5 up. And then you remove at first the 20 models here, and then you can fight back with the 10s that are at this side of the string, or with the 10s that are at this side of the string. And if you don't do this, they might just place 9 models here around, and then you can only fight with 3 and don't do any damage back. So this is like how to deploy a unit internally. You want to have the heads of the units like here. And what you also sort of could do is like you place 2 here, and then you place the head probably up here. So to push him further away then at some point. Place a strong head of the unit here. So again, he can only then deploy here, charge in here, same problem. And therefore you try to, if you have enough models, and I have 80 witches, so I can cover quite a huge board space. Yeah, so I can push him quite far back, and then the eels might only charge in here somewhere, and I don't really care for that much because the first 20 wounds are back here. Yeah, something around this. So this is my deployment advice, I would say, against the eels. And if you have like skinks or chaos mortars, you can just keep your units back here, try to probably score in the center, have some U-formed screen built up, so your hard stuff here in the center is safe, and if the eels come in, they won't make the charge most likely. Usually it's 24 inches, so he can always bring, of course, them from his back side of the board, but then they can only like charge at best something that is 20 inches in, which is not even the center. So you can't even advance to the center, and usually this is all you need. If you have all the objective in your space and in the center, then you usually win the games. Okay, after the eels, next thing to think about The Sure-Hearted Evocators. Yes, this is quite a popular list right now, which features 10 evocators, 5 evocators, 5 evocators, 20 sequitors, 5 sequitors, 5 sequitors, a Lord Arcanum, yeah, Knight Vexillor to move stuff around, Gabriel Sureheart to get the sure charges, and the Lord Castellan to make the sequitors tough. So, and what the evocators do is sort of the same thing. They have this each time this unit attacks, after all of its attacks have been resolved, you can pick one enemy unit within 3 inches. If you do so, roll 2 dice for each 4+, they get a mortal wound. So on average, the 10 evocators will do 10 mortal wounds, and you don't want this to get to your hex or stuff like this. So again, you can have the same deployment. The evocators, they don't have to flank, but they don't have this huge charge bonus. Gabriel Sureheart, okay, they depending on how much command points they have. Gabriel Sureheart gives +3 to charge, and depending on how much command points he's willing, he can move, but he can't fly. So this is the huge bonus you have. So if you have this backline here, sort of, you can think of like having a second line, then like 18 inches apart. So this is 27, this is over the board half. So this backline, for this backline, by the way, this is like 72 inches. So you need sort of 36 models to make it, if you want to make it complete. But 30 models will do, because you spare here like 9 models, and you spare here like 9 models. You need like only 2 and 2, so you spare 14 models of the 36. So with 20 it's a bit tough. Probably need another character here to make it work or so, but or with 10 and 10 it's probably quite easy to do. So, and if you have here 9 inches, here 9 inches, here 9 inches, then you're already with 2 units of 30, you completely blocked like 2/3 of the board. He can only, or even 3/4. You blocked 3/4 of the board. He can't come down with his evocators. You can place your models here as you like. And this one here is like 15 inches apart from your deployment zone. So if you run riches by thicks, you don't get there in the first turn, even with cogs up, but with cogs and Cauldron Guard, you can get to there and then sort of have 3/4 of the board blocked for his deep striking stuff. Yeah, and then the evocators you really don't have to fear anymore. And the same thing, of course, goes for Chaos Murderers or Skinks. You can place 10 here, 10 here, 10 here, 10 here. Have your hard hammer unit probably in here. I know probably you don't play 40 of them, but even with 30 it sort of works, because you can like then build some sort of U-form thing and still focus your hammer here, have it in reach of everything. Yeah, and this is like how screens work, I guess, against Sure-Hearted Evocators. Next list, which is quite popular, I don't know, we will see. We activate this again and go forth one slide, which is Dreadwood Pine. And now it gets a bit more crazy, because this list does a lot of shooting damage. Let's show it here. So what does this have? It has Alarielle, it has a Celestin Prime as an ally, it has Drycha, and these are the 3 characters that do your main work. You have some Kurnoth Hunters to snipe off last wounds, I would say. You have Spite Revenants, 5-man squads 4 times. You have the Outcast Battalion, you have the Dreadwood Wargroove. Sadly, in this configuration with the Kurnoss Hunters, there is no room for the cogs. You could drop the Kurnoss Hunters for cogs, which I probably would like to do, but not 100% sure if this is the right move. And what does this list do? And therefore, I want to sit down for a moment again and pick up my my Silvermouth book to think about this a bit together. So the clue about this is the Dreadwood Wargroove, which does the following thing. This is my German book, sadly. At the start of the first battle round, roll the dice. On a 1 or 2, you can pick 1. At a 3 or 4, you can pick 2, and at a 5 or 6, you can pick 3 of the following like abilities. And this is like for all of this, and you can like add any Sylvaneth unit in here. So they are all in the Dreadwood Wargroove except the Celestin Prime, which will of course deep strike. And what you really want to have to make this work, from my point of view, currently, is you want to have a 3-up. If you only have 1, it's not as potent from my understanding so far. So the first thing you will always pick probably is a Dreadwood unit can be redeployed anywhere from 6 inches from enemy units, which is huge. 6 inches is an easy charge. And the more important thing, you are in reach of certain abilities, which are most notably the Dritcher Hammeret's Skirmlings, I guess. Yeah, for the Skirmlings you pick 1 enemy unit and roll a dice for each model in 10 inches. So you deploy 6 inches apart, so you have 4 inch deep, which is quite huge, of models to pick. And if Drycha is not wounded on a 3-up, and depending on her sort of mood, I don't know how this is translated, again, German book, you can reroll once. So this would mean 7 out of 9, I guess, which will kill like 21, which heck now means 14 witches out of a 30 unit. And witches are already sort of the best thing to field against this attack. So really, really, really hard to kill 1 enemy screen unit. And if you have to remove like 14 witches out of a 30 block, there will be some room. And to capitalize on this, you have the second thing, which is up to 3 Dreadwood units can move as if it is the movement phase. And remember, this is like before the battle round, but they can't run. So, and for this you have Alarielle. So she moves at the start of the game without wounds 16 inches. Then in her movement phase, she moves again 16 inches. She can fly, so we are at 32. If she can place her base. She has really, really a huge base, the same as the Maw-Crusher. So you could like, this is a 160 mil base. So if you don't leave huge holes in your deployment area, you can like prevent her from flying in there, which would be huge. Then but the point is like with Drycha, you go first and delete 14 units out of 30 witch elves. And this is like the best case. If you go against Chaos Marauders or Skinks or whatever, the death toll is proportionally much more bigger. And then Alarielle charges through with her Beetle, which has the potential to do 25 damage if everything works out. She has a spell where how many you roll to cast. Let's say you roll a 10 on a 4-up, you pick up 10 dice then, and on a 4-up she does that many mortal wounds. So there is a potential to kill off characters or like severely wound them. Drycher has again a quite good spell against low bravery models, where you roll a d6 and add 2 and each point over their morale or their bravery, that many mortal wounds you do. It's not that good because there are few things that have really low bravery with this spell excels, but against some things it's really cool. So and not to forget about, Alarielle has the Spear of Kurnoth, which has the range of 30, 3-up, 2-up, -2, so and then d6 damage. So you might get one character killed with this, and you have sort of one unit sort of quite deleted. You still have Drycher and Alarielle probably still have one spell left to cast. And then there is the Celestine Prime, which comes down and you can like throw his hammer somewhere, and then d6 around this point you do mortal wounds. Let's look at the exact thing. Yeah, 24-inch range, so 9 inch apart from your screen. So he still comes like 15 inches behind your screen, which is like more than your deployment zone. If you have the standard deployment zone with 12 inches, so he can reach like everybody. And this is one of the reasons why the Ungor Raiders are that great. I really looked for something similar to have for my Witch army, but the only thing in order that has this are some of the Shadow Warriors or something of the High Elves, and I can't ally them in, and they are quite more expensive than the Ungor Raiders. Yeah, so this is a way to prevent this, because the Ungor Raiders move up, and then you have this 18 inches to prevent the hammer to be thrown anywhere. And you probably even need more than 18 inches, because he just throws the hammer at 18 inches, and d6 inches from there the damage is done. So the 6-inch move of Ungor Raiders, I think they move 6, isn't enough. You probably have to get even further to be safe from the hammer. And the hammer does d3 mortal wounds, and you can like once per turn change one of the dice rolls to the side you want to, and you can have the d3 picked or the d6 as the range, the circle size of the hammer damage. And if your like heroes are like cuddled together, this is really bad. So what you have to do here is like really spread out. So you best be 12 inches apart from each other, from each hero. So you have to build these triangles with 12 inch, which is possible. Then he only gets one. But on the other hand, like if you have to remove with Drycher 15 of your screen at least from a big unit, and then the beetle charges in, you can't really protect against everything of this. You can just try to hide somewhere. And then the Celestine Prime still charges, which is hopefully probably you have the cogs, then a 7, and you can turn one dice if you haven't used it for the hammer to really make the charge. He has then 3 attacks, 3 2s, -3 damage. So again, potential to do 9 damage, which isn't that likely, because 3-up, 2-up sounds good, but it's only 20 of 36, and 20 of 36 is close to half. So really flippy, this one. Might be 3, might be nothing. Yeah, and this is like how the Dreadwood works. The problem is, if you don't roll the 3-up at the beginning, then you really are in trouble, because you have to redeploy Drycher. And if you just like let them move through the woods, you only have 1 wood to start with, so you have to give your Branch Wraith another seed to plant in front of your deployment zone or in front of the opponent's deployment zone, depending on which side the wood you placed is. Probably we can talk shortly about this again. And deactivate, therefore, this. So, and probably I'm wrong because I overlooked something, but this is my understanding of it. So you have here 12, and you have here 12 as a deployment zone, and you have, this is a Citadel Wildwood. So let's say you place your first one sort of here, and you place your second one sort of here, and the third one sort of here. So all of them are close enough to each other, and then you want probably this constellation with a seed. So you deploy your branch wraith up here, drop the seed, place this one. If you don't have and if you have this, the problem is if you are on the wrong side. Okay, let's start like this. Let's imagine this wood isn't there. The wood is at the side of your opponent. You have your branch wraith here. You drop the seed. You have the second wood. You can travel all of the stuff which is on the line, so in 3 inches of the wood, to here. But you have to be 9 inches away from the enemy, which already hurts Drycha quite a lot. And I see we haven't moved the camera. So branch wraith here. This wood is pre-game deployed. The Sylvaneth one, branch wraith drops the seed. You have this wood, everything is here on the line, jumps through the wood to here, 9 inches away from the enemy. And the problem with this is then Drycha has 9 inches, so she only gets 1 inch of models of the unit with her ability. Even worth, yeah, because you can't, you could probably then jump forward with Alarielle. And make through the woods and make a 9-inch charge. Yeah, and then you probably have not used any of the 2 abilities, so you could still with Alarielle jump through, make the 9-inch charge. Therefore I would include Cox to have it on a 7 rerollable. Okay, which is already sort of worse than her double move with fly. And then you could teleport Drycha and have still the effect. But if this is your side and your branch wraith is here, you have to pick the teleport the branch wraith up here and place the seed. Or yeah, and then you can't like teleport Drycha, which is bad. And even Alarielle still has the long charge. So to have this work, you have, like, from my point of view, 2 good games out of 3. And I don't like armies that only have 2 good games out of 3 because you don't usually win tournaments with this. Yeah, but still it's a good army list, but it's not enough for me to like play it or really have a fear of it. Because it does a lot of damage over range, but not enough to really kill too much, I guess. Okay, then we have the last list I want to talk about today. And this is the Dragon Lords. And this came up like one strange guy, I forget as usual his name, in the UK played this. And this is like 2 sort of models, to different models on the table, which are the Dragon Blades, so the High Elf, High Armor Knights, and the Dragon Lord. I can probably show this again. Yeah, so you play 3 of the Dragon Lords. You play 1 battalion, so you have 3 items. You take the Quicksilver Potion and the Doppelganger Cloak to really go first with all of your Dragon Lords. And then you take 3 times 5 Dragon Princes, which are battle line, and yeah, fill out the battalion, which is next, the Dragon Lord Host. Okay, And then you take an Archmage from Dragon. First of all, he has, if he takes the book, 2 casts. And you have still room for endless spells. As you see, you probably take, as usual, cogs. I would say probably some damage spell. Yeah, something like this. You could probably think about the Life Swarm. Yeah, let's see. I'm not decided yet what for endless spells I would take. And he can like remove debuffs. So, and there is a second version of this list where you play the Dragon Host 2 times. Then you would have to take 20 Dragon Princes, also 4 times 5. And then you probably only have place for the Archmage on Steed, which is still good because he gives out the 6+ Feel No Pain. But I'm a bit undecided which one of the lists I would pick. Let's go with this one. The main clue about this whole list is the Dragonlord Host. And this tells you that once per battle in your hero phase, the Dragonlord and each unit from this battalion, so there's 1 Dragonlord, 3 Dragonblades in this battalion, can move as it is the movement phase, but not run. If after a unit moves, there are enemy units within 12 inch, and just to recap, the dragon flies 14 inches and the dragon blades move 12 inches, and you probably have cogs up by this already. Yeah, because it's not start of the hero phase, it's in your hero phase, you might have cogs up. After it moves, there are enemies within 12 inch. Roll a dice. On a 4+, you can, as for the Dragonlord, attack with a Dragonfire. Or charge, which isn't that good. But the Dragonfire. So in this case, you have like 3 dragons up front, 14 or let's say 16 inches with cogs. So even with 24-inch deployment, it's 6 from your line. So with rerolls, you probably make 2 or 3 charges, I guess. And you have the Archmage, which still has a dragon. So you have probably 5 dragon attacks. And the dragon attacks are 12-inch range. And on a 1 or 2, it's 1 mortal wound. On a 3 or 4, it's D3. And a 5 or 6, it's D6. So it's 3.5, 5.5, 6.5. So it's yeah, it's like on average 2 mortal wounds on total, I would say. Yes, a bit more. But 2 mortal wounds, you have 5 attacks probably. So you do 10 mortal wounds on average with this. But this is not where the crazy thing stops, because so now you have with cogs up, you have 16 plus 12 for one of the dragons as reach, and for the others it's probably not enough to do it. So if you take the first turn with this or have the first turn with this, but at the moment you really get the charges in, and you know you will get the charges in, you can use the Elven Warhorn, and each of the 3 Dragon Lords might have one of these. And this would add 1 to attacks for each Order Draconis unit in 10. So you keep them all cuddled together, and you get +3 attacks. And just to say what they have, for example, 3 lance attacks, 3+, 3+, minus and 1 rend, 2 damage. But on the charge, you go to 2 up to wound. So and you can use a command point to get a reroll to hit. So each of the dragons, only the lance, has 6 attacks, 3+ reroll, 2+, -1, 2 damage. So this is potential 12 damage only from the lances. And then there is still the Dragon Claws, which are 6 attacks, 4+ rerollable, 3+, -1. So this is sort of witchy, but 2. So this is sort of like 3 witches that attack here with the Dragon Claws. with -1 rend. And last, but this goes from 6 to 9. So for each of the dragons has more rend than witches and counts as like 10 to 15 witches as damage. Damage, by the way, is by now counted in witches, obviously. And you have like 3 dragons of this, which always attack first, and probably some of them won't even get damage in return because of the doppelganger cloak and how you pick your activations. And if you really want to do this probably more sure, you probably go with the 20 dragon princes and 2 times the battalion. And you really dish out a lot of damage. The point is the dragons are on a not so big base as I guess. Let's have a short look. I have the bases here. Yeah, they are in the 120 times 92. So what you have to do is like space your units so the 9 centimeters apart, so that the dragon princes can't land in there, and then they have to charge your screen, and you are safe, except they get a double turn. Then you have again 2 times this. You have to have 2 times the screen, which is again doable but hard. And still you will, like always, get flamed by the fireballs. But only of 2 dragons in the first round, on average even 1, because it only works on a 4+. But still. And then the problem is, like, even if you survive the first turn of this, and this is not that high of a drop list, this is like 3-4 drops. This is, you will get a lot of times to pick which turn to take. Yeah, I guess this should be it for now, for the Alpha Strike. Anything left to say I want to remember? Not for now. Okay, then we disable this again. We could probably take a short look if there is something going on in the chat. Yeah, hi. Somebody wrote hi. Nebelelb. Okay, German. Okay, then we come to the last topic of today's show, which is Bonesplitterz. And as I did sort of last time with in episode 37 with the witches, I just want to go through the book and see what's going on here. And as usual, you have to start with the okay, I probably have to open the General's Handbook because all of the point values are not in there, and of course they have changed. So where are the point values for the Bonesplitterz? Here they are. Okay, they are. Let's look at the battle line. Like everything is battle line except the big steppers from the units. If you have a Bonesplitter armor, which I will do. The cheapest battle line is the Boarboys with 100 for 5. Then we have the Warboys and the Aurochs with 120 for 10 or 300 for 30. And you could pick the Arrow Boys 10 or the Boarboy Maniacs 5 for 140. So what do they do? The Boarboy Maniacs, they got used by somebody in the UK. I saw his list. He played, again, guess 2 times 10 of them, so 280, 560 points of them. And their big advantage is at the end of each close combat phase, you could pile in and attack again. So they attack twice. The problem is they only have like 4 attacks, 4 up, 3 up, 4 up, 4 up. Okay, so this is not that good. But with 4 attacks, like they have sort of the similar amount attacks as witches, but you pay like the same price, 280 for 10 of them, and they are on bigger bases than that you pay for like 30 witches. They have 3 wounds, so they have a similar amount of health than the witches, like yeah, 30 compared to 30. They have a 6 up armor save and a 6 up feel no pain save. So the witches, especially Hagnar, are better here from the wounds perspective. And the problem is like 4 up, 3 up, 4 up, 4 up is sort of witchy, but you always have to count in the buffs. And the buffs are like, I guess, better at the witch elves, even with a double attack from the first point of view here. This might change later. So then they have a musician, which adds to their charge move, and to the totem adds to their bravery, as long as they are in 3 inches of an enemy. Okay, then they have like rerolling ones to hit with the melee ones. And if you have charged, you can reroll all wound ones with the tusks. So yeah, they are a bit like witch elves. They have a 9 move. The witches can run and charge. So this is sort of the same somehow. But in the attacks profile, they have like only like a third, because you pay like 280 for 10 and witches are 270 for 30. So you have to like, they are only a third of the damage, but they can pile in twice, but they probably get damage back. So there is probably something to work here with, but probably not enough. Well, let's see. Again, at 140, they are the arrow boys. We just don't look at their melee attacks for now. They have -1 rend against monsters. And if they are 20 or more, and you can buy them in units of 30, I guess. Yes, the 40 is gone. You could formerly buy them in 40s, but now only 30s. And as long as they are more than 20, you have 1 additional attack with their bows. So 2 or 3 attacks, 5 up, 4 up, 1 damage, and -1 rend against monsters. So even if you have 3 attacks, you only hit once, and only every second arrow boy does a wound, which is sort of 15 wounds on an 18-inch range after move. So they move 5. Is not that good from this point of view right now. The point why this got crazy are in the buffs, which we come to later. Okay, then we have the Oruks, and from my point of view, these are the worst here. They have either a jumper or a sticker, and this means 4 up, 3 up, or 4 up, 4 up with 2-inch range. And the 4 up, 3 up has only 1-inch range. You can re-roll wounds for 1 if you have 30 models, but you are at best 30 models. So, if you are 20 models. If you are 30 models, so no model died, you can re-roll all wound rolls. They are in a similar price range to the witches. They have like 30 times 2 wounds then, for a similar price range. So they have double the amount of wound than witches, but they have much worse armor and feel no pain, like 6 up, 5 up, and most likely 6 up, 5 up. So yeah, they have board presence here, but and if they have shields, they have a 5 up armor save. Okay, so they are like wounds wise worse to kill than witches because they are a lot more. The problem is they have a 5 up bravery, witches get like immune to battle shock, sort of, quite easily. They don't. And damage wise, they have only like 1 attack instead of 4. So they are at a fourth of the damage. They have no double pile in like the maniac boar boys. So damage wise, they are really, really, really bad. And I see no way that you can get them up to witch performance constantly. Okay, then we come to the normal boar boys. And they, the war boar tusks attack are of course the same, but they have either a jumper or a sticker, which are the same as described before at the Aurochs. So they have 1 attack less than the maniacs. They cost less, so they have 15 times 3, 45 wounds for the in the 300 price range. So more than witches. Okay. They have only 3 attacks per model, so even with 15, so they go to 15 times 3 is 45, where witches have 120 attacks. So you are like a third of their attacks. Still better than the Savage Uruks, but not enough. The stickers do 2 damage against monsters. Okay. And they can retreat and charge, which is sort of their thing. The problem is, like, let's say you can get 5 of them to pile into a hero that you could reach with retreat and charge. Then you have like 10 attacks, hitting on force, so 5. Then you have 75% of this to wound. So this would be like close to 4 wounds, no rend on this hero. And you have probably 5 jumpers, 2.5, and this would mean 1.6. So let's say you do 5 wounds without rend to a hero for 5 of these. Each model does 1 wound. And this is most likely not enough to get really traction out of them up until now. Let's see what the buffs can do later. And now we come to my favorite here, and there are 2 left, so guess what it is. My favorite are the Savage Orruk Moor boys. And why they are my favorite, I can tell. They have 2 attacks. They cost the same as the Savage Uruks. They just have no shield. And they have the first attack hits on 4s and 3s, so like the better one of the Savage Uruks, and their second attack is just as the second attack profile of the Uruks, but they have to pick one and they have just both. They have and this is sort of it already. They just do double the amount of damage than the Aurochs, and therefore they come to sort of like 50% of witch damage. They have the problem that, and this is like really important, and decides a lot of how good a unit performs in the end. And they are on 32 mil bases, and the witches are on 25, so you can't fight with 2 ranks, which makes everything even worse for the Aurochs. But let's see if we can compensate for this. So they have 2 special abilities. As soon as a monster is slain in the battle, you get +1 to hit, which is great. I don't know how you could kill a monster that easily. You could technically include one into your army, like a giant or something. For 100, I guess 40 points is the giant right now. Just run him forward and... No, it's 160, but still. And let it be killed, and then all your Moor boys get +1 to hit, which is a damage increase by like 33%, which is great. Problem is, for damage increase of 33%, I would say that probably I would have at least 1,000 points of Moor boys to make this a giant deal work. Or you could pick one of the Forge World models. I guess it's in the same price range. And the problem is with them, they are not that strong, not that fast. especially. Strong, okay, they are not, but this doesn't care. I just want a +1 to hit. I'm not really sold to like having a sacrifice monster in my army. Second ability is you can, if there is a monster in 3 inches, roll the die on a 1, 2, 3. There is no damage on a 4. The monster takes D3 wounds, and 1 model of your unit is slain. So you can trade one of your models for D3 mortal wounds because they jump on the monster's back and something. Still, they are like really tanky. They are like 60 wounds for 300 points, which is great, and they are half the damage of witches, which is not that great. So sort of double the amount of wounds. Okay, they have worse armor, but half damage. And I guess from there we can work then with buffs. And the second best unit from my point of view are probably the big stabbers. The guy who did really well in the UK with the big stabbers played 2 times 2 of them. So like you get 4 models, I guess. So you get 2 models per 100 points. So he played 2 units of 4 models. So 8 in total, and this is like always 2 Savage Oroks, but still per point they are like much less durable than the other ones. Where you get for 100 points, you get here, if you buy 30, you get here 20 wounds, and here you get for 100 points 8 wounds. So much less durable, but they have like 2 attacks. So for 100 points, let's say 4 attacks, 4s, 3s, -2, 3 damage. So they are like at a third of witch damage at best. They are better against higher armor, and depending on the buffs we can stack on them. 4 to hit, 3 to wound is not that good, but they add the plus D3 to the damage against monsters, so 5, which gets really crazy already on average, 5 damage. And if they die, they do D3 damage to a monster that is in 3 inches. So if you have a monster heavy meta, then you could really wreck stuff with this. But the problem is how to get there. They only move 5, so not that good from here. So now we come to the heroes. There are 4 of them, and 3 of them are like casters. So we start with a non-caster one, which is the Savage Big Boss. And yeah, he can, after he attacked, you can pick one of the Bonesplitterz units in 10 inches, and that unit can attack immediately. So you can always like safe pick with him to attack first, then the unit gets automatically to attack immediately too. He has 5 attacks, 3 up, 3 up, -1, 2 damage. So okay profile, 6 wounds, 6 up safe as usual. And then he has a command ability. You can pick a Bonesplitterz unit in 10 inches up until your next hero phase. If the unit rolls a 6 to hit, you can make another attack with the same weapon. So usually you want to have this on units that have a good to hit, which sort of none of the Bonesplitterz have. They all hit on 4s. But probably you can cast this on the Arrow Boys, which then have like 3 attacks, and on a 6 they get another attack. So this like sort of makes makes half of another attack. There's not +1 attack, but it's plus half of another attack usually for Bonesplitterz. Am I right? Am I wrong? No, this is a third. A third if you're on 5+, half of an attack if you're on 4+, and 2/3 of an attack if you're on a 3+. So most of the time it's half of an attack that this generates more. Okay. I don't think that this guy is worth it. If you play the arrows, it might be, but the main problem is, like, what I want to do here is, like, I want to play it to construct an army that is, for my opponent, probably more fun to play against than witches. And the arrow boys are probably not the way to go, because you spend like hours rolling dice. So let's keep him out for a moment. Next guy I don't really like is the Warg Prophet. He has a mask, -1 to hit in melee. So okay, he can't usually be is -1 to hit in shooting, so in melee too. He has Gorg's Fist. Pick a unit in 18 inches. On a roll a die for each model. On a 6-up it gets a mortal wound. And if it was if you roll 2 times the same number, I don't know how in German it's Pasch, whatever. Then this happens on a 5-up, which is really good, because otherwise in the Gaunt Summoner, the models don't have to be in range. The unit has to be in range here. But on a 6, it's really like not enough for me. And he has a command ability. So pick a Bonesplitterz in 15 inches. It can immediately pilot an attack as in the melee phase. Problem is that, as usual, some of the buffs that they get don't work in the hero phase, and therefore it's always a bit wasted from my point of view. You could play him, but I'm not a huge fan. So the other ones I really like. There's the Maniac Weirdnob. He has a spell that is cast on 4 and has a 10-inch bubble on units to reroll hits on 1, which already helps. But if you cast it on a double, this is the expression, and then you reroll all hits, which is huge. So this is what you really are aiming for all the time, double on this spell, and it's easily cast on a 4, and once per battle you can reroll your cast. So you usually really always have this up, and it usually 10 inch is a huge bubble. It lets you reroll once for your whole army. So quite good, I think. And he's quite fast, 9-inch move, has 6 wounds, so more than the guy we're talking next. Yeah, I really like him. And the next ones are the War Dogs. They sound a bit strange because they don't have a spell for themselves. Like the Weirdnob has this hit spell, and the Warg Prophet has this Gaunt Summoner similar spell, but worse, sort of. But they don't have even a spell. So you can it only really makes sense if you want to cast Mystic Shield, Arcane Bolt, or one of the Bonesplitterz spells, which are quite a lot. And they got much bigger with 2.0 because we have now realm rules and realm spells. So you can pick from the realm spells for them. And you can, like in the hero phase, roll a die. On a 1 or 2, you can pick a model in 10 inches, which heals D3 wounds. Okay, not that bad, but probably not that good, because like the orcs are 2 lives, so that you might find a unit to heal up 1 wound, or the characters are 6 wounds, so you might find one that has only lost a few wounds, not every wound, and is dead. But okay, this is probably not what we're aiming for here. 3 or 4 on this roll. Pick a unit in 10 inches. You can re-roll save rolls of 1. Again, not what we're aiming for here, but nice buff probably. You have a fixed 6-up save all the time, so re-rolling once, yeah, increases the amount of saves by 16%, but this is, since you save so few, it really comes into play rather rarely. But what we are aiming at here is the 5 or 6, and this is the reason I would play at least like 3 of them to have like a decent chance to have this always on. Is you pick a model, a wizard in 10 inches, so for example himself, and until the next hero phase you add 1 to cast and dispels for this model, and this is quite good. Yeah, and he's a caster. and this is it. And he only costs 100 points, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. And the Warrock Prophet, like the one with the Gaunt Summoner spell, costs 140. So already more expensive, quite. But he can cast 2 times. Okay, this is okay then. But I don't really need more cast if I play 3 Warlocks from my point, and at least 1 Weird Knob. So the Weird Knob costs 120, if I remember all right. And the Savage Big Boss costs currently 120. Yes, 120. So basically this is a tough army which has a lot of models and a low bravery. So you really want to have some command points here. So yeah, we talked about all the units now. You would be happy, I would say, to include some battalions, and they have some mega battalions too. So there are quite some possibilities here. Let's start with the one that has probably was played in a major tournament, but has the fewest models in it. The Thief Rook, 2 to 5 units of the bigger stabbers, and in your hero phase, you can pick a monster, and all models of the Thief Rook that are within 6 of the monster can pile in 6 and attack, and they can attack later again. So this is like what makes them crazy against monsters. So each of them has like let's say you play 1 unit of 2 of them, so you have 2 models, so you have 4 models. They have 8 attacks, so when they can do this twice, they have 16 attacks. So 6 of them go through, so probably 4 of them are not saved by armor, so they do 20 wounds, which is quite easy. And he had the guy who played in the UK with this had this 2 times, so he could like do like easily a monster with 3 up armor. He could with this easily do like 40 damage with average rolling and no further buffs. And this is like crazy shit. And the 6-inch pile out is really good. Like if you played Sister of Slaughter, you know this. So they are good, but against not monsters, I'm not sure yet, because they are too squishy. Okay, then let's go to the one that like everybody played before 2.0, which is the Cunning Rook. And you can pick a unit within 10 of the big boss that is in this battalion. And in this battalion are either Savage Uruks or Savage Uruk Arrow Boys, so the worst fighters, which are have quite a lot of lives. So or the Bow Boys. Yeah, and you picked it, and this unit can either move and run if there are more than 3 from an enemy, or they can shoot, or pile in an attack as in the melee phase. And they can do this again. So now we double the amount of shots of the Arrow Boys. So we have probably 6 shots hitting on 5, so 2 hit and 1 wound. So 1 wound per boy, which is already okay. And then you have this 6 thing from the big boss, which you already have in this battalion. So you have another shot, so another 6 of damage. So each arrow boy currently does 1.16 damage, which is okay, I guess. But for comparison, the witches, they do sort of 3 damage per model. Yeah, 2 point something, but still, if they are Hagnarf starting from round 3, they probably might even exceed 3 damage per model, but it's around this. Okay, so and the main problem is like if you play 30 arrow boys, they shoot 30 arrows, 3 arrows per model, so 90 arrows. You have to roll, you have to pick up all your sixes, you roll them again, then you have to wound, and you have to do this twice, so 90 arrows. This is not that easy. Okay, let's come to the brutal rook. 1 savage big boss and savage uruks or boar boys, and you can always run 6 with them while they are within 10 of the big boss. So I don't really care for this, honestly, because they are both like meat units that only stand around and do nothing, and they can't run and charge, except you include one of the mushroom goblin guy from a little importance. Yeah, this I really don't need, I think. Then we have this Naga Rook. This is, I guess, playable. Too many weird knobs, so already it's okay. 2 to 10 units of Savage Warboy Maniacs. And you can charge in your hero phase if you're within 12, but still you can't fight. So I don't really see anything that why this is a thing. But if you make the charge, each model can roll, and the 4 up, the enemy gets 1 mortal wound, but on a 1 you get a mortal wound. So if I have 10 of these guys, I might get 2 mortal wounds, which still doesn't kill my first pick, so I can still attack with it. Okay, but I only do 6 mortal, like 5 mortal wounds, which is okay. But to pull it off, you have to have your caster up front. Not that sure if I want to have this with heroes that are not that good of a save. And finally, my favorite one is the Cop Rook, and this is for 2 reasons. First of all, you can add 1 to the casting rolls of the Wardogs in this battalion, and you can have 2 to 5 of them if they are within 20 of the Savage Moorboys, and you can have 2 to 5 units of Moorboys in here. And you can add 2 if they are within 12 inch of 30 Moorboys, which is already crazy. Plus 2 to cast is really, really, really good right now if you're playing with Wyrm spells. The only downside is if you roll a double, then D3 models die. Okay, you roll a double, by the way, in 1/6 of the time. So over a game, this is probably 5 models that die to this, but 5 models to die, 50 points to get +2 to cast on your casters is, I guess, worth it. Yeah, and sort of evenly important is the second ability. If the Moorboys are within 12 of 2 of the Wardogs, they get 1 to +2 wound, +1 to wound in this order. And then they suddenly have, if the rerolling once buff of the weird knob is on, they have 4+ to hit, rerolling once, and 3 or 4s to wound on their attacks, or with this bonus 2 and 3s to wound. So we start to get talking here. If a monster died, they hit on 3s instead of 4s rerolling ones. So we are slowly but surely getting somewhere here. Yeah, and then there's a Savage War Clan, which is 5 million points. Who cares? Let's get to the mega battalions. We have the Bone Grinders War Clan, which has a Cunning Rook with 4 units of arrows boys, or just how are they called again? The Savage Uruks, yeah. And you can add any Bonesplitterz units you like. The important thing here is you get +1 bravery to Bonesplitterz when a monster was died, so who cares? There's a ability for your general. You can pick on the monster hunter table instead of roll a dice. But I don't know, I'm not that sure about this. But the important thing is probably if a Savage Uruks a unit or Savage Uruk Arrow Boys or Big Stabbers was completely destroyed, roll dice on a 6. You can set up an identical unit within 6 of a board edge, 9 inches away from the enemy, and this counts as their move. Yeah, it's a nice thing, but on a 6 you really have to have a lot of units, and then they are not that big and don't do that much. I'm not sure if I like this Bone Grinder War Clan. Let's go to the Ice Bone War Clan, which includes a Snagarak with 4 units of Savage Boar Boy Maniacs. And again, everything at Bonesplitterz units you like to add as you like. They get +2 to move on their boars, and if they hit a monster and the monster gets a wound out of it, then it can't pick to attack up until everybody else attacked. Yeah, they have an artifact which halves the damage of everything that goes to this hero, but the toughest hero has 6 wounds, so it doesn't really help that much. And now there is one, of course, that I like, which is, or I sort of like, let's say. I played around with it, but in the end I dropped it again, which is the Dragfoot War Clan. And here you succeed on casting rolls for all the doubles, so even double 1s or double 2s, where usually it's not enough. Yeah, you can roll if you are the target of a spell, and on a 6-up, it just doesn't affect you, which is like very swingy, but if it happens, it's really good. And you have a spell cast on an 8. Let's factor in +2 to cast, so it's sort of on a 6, possibly. And you can pick a Bonesplitterz unit within 6 and immediately pile in and attack. So you have to pick a Warrock Prophet, which has this command ability, so you can pile in and attack twice in the hero phase. So very slowly getting somewhere, because the first pile in is probably can probably finish off the unit, and with a second pile in you can move towards the next one, possibly. So okay, but in the end it really didn't convince me. So right now, where are we? We have like a battalion that works with from my point of view, with Tiefrock, really good against monsters, but squishy models, so I really don't like it that much. It's okay. Cunning Rogue, bad play experience, and Cop Rogue, 2 to 5 Warlocks, 2 to 5 Savage Uruks. This is probably the most solid one, but it doesn't really make your army. You at least want to include one Boarboy Maniac. But then I think we're close to somewhere, because now we come to the to the artifacts. There is the mask that's like some people like, where you do D3 once per game, do D3 damage to a unit in 12 inches, and you can continue doing D3 damage as long as you continue rolling a 3-up. But if you roll a 1 or 2, the model is dead, like the one that wears the mask. So your model. So I don't really like that. Surprisingly, too much risk, too much reward. I like the mystical warp color, which adds 1 to your dispels, and you can dispel, it says here 24 inches away, which is weird because the default now is 30. So I looked it up in the FAQ. If I remember correctly, it's 36 now. So this is what I would pick, one 36-inch dispel. And this then usually is the guy from the dancers who gets +1 to dispel. So he dispels with +2 in 36-inch range. So one sort of quite sure dispel, which I quite like. Yeah, and these are probably the two items I want to highlight from the arcane ones. Then there are the ones that non-wizards can take, and I would probably take the wild trophy here. Again, translating from German. Add 1 to bravery in the battle shock phase, just because you might need it. And there isn't much else here that I like, but you can still go for the real net effects, which for my list in the end we will do. So now we come to the sort of most important part, which sheds a new light on all the units, I guess, which is the magic spells. And we probably start off with number 2, which is probably my first pick all the time, which is Hand of Gorg. Has a casting value of 6 or possibly 4 or even 3 if the dance worked. And you can pick a Bonesplitterz unit, yeah, without any range to the caster, because it's the hand of the god that comes out of the ceiling or so. And it can move twice as wide, so we are looking at like 10-inch moving yes, how are they called again? The Savage Orok War Boys, or like at 18-inch moving boars. And if you roll a double, it's tripled. Like you are looking at 15-inch moving war boys and 27-inch moving boars. And the important part is, in a German edition here, it's translated correctly, because here it says or fly. And as far as I know from different sources in the English version, it's and fly, which makes quite a difference, as we saw in the pile-in stuff. Or alpha striking stuff, because now you can have boars that fly 27 inches. They are on quite small bases, like not really small, but you always sort of find some niche there. So quite good, I think. And my second pick usually is number 3, Brutal Beast Spirits. Again, cast on a 6, so probably 3 or 4. Pick a Bonesplitterz unit with an 18. It gets +1 to run, charge, and hit. And hit is the important part, probably. And if you roll a double, you can pick another Bonesplitterz unit with an 18. So the unit where you want to charge with, like your 30 mob of more boys I'm playing, gets immediately +33% damage, and we were already close to witch power, I would say. So in the battalion we get +1 to hit, and now we get +1 to in the battalion we get +1 to wound. Now we get +1 to hit. With the Weird Knob spell we are rerolling once, so overall we are at 2 attacks, to hit on 3s, rerolling once, to wound on 2 or 3s, rerolling once, not rerolling once yet. So okay, we are at, I would say, over half of witch power already. 7 of 9, yeah, something around this. And I might get +1 again to hit if I kill the monster. The only problem is 2 attacks is a bit slim. I want to have 4 attacks probably. or more. Okay. Let's talk about the other spells. There's one that casts on a 6 and the enemy has to re-roll hit rolls of 6 against you. It's okay, I would say. You could pick it with like your third more boy, but usually I don't, because there are two others that are direct damage spells. First one is Squig Curse, and it has a range of 20, so with an 18-inch deployment you could reach the other side probably, but you only can cast it against monsters or heroes. And on a 1 the monster gets 1 mortal wound, on a 2 to 5 it gets D3 mortal wounds, and on a 6 it gets D6 mortal wounds. So it's the sort of the old Arcane Bolt quality of damage, but only against monsters. If you kill somebody with this, you can add 1 to your casting rolls because you collect his magical power, whatever. So okay, again. And then we have Knochenbrecher in German, like bone crusher or something in English. Again, casting roll of 6. So all the spells we talked about cast on 6. So the more boys cast them on 4s, which is sort of really good because like 11 out of 12 times you will make it. Yeah, and the Knochenbrecher does. You pick a unit within 12, but preferable in 6, because if it is within 6, it gets D6 mortal wounds. If it is if the unit your target is in 6 or to 12, it gets D3, and if it is in 12 to 24, you get 1 mortal wound. But if you roll a double, you just double the amount of mortal wounds, but the caster then also gets D3 mortal wounds. So if you get this to 6 inches and you roll a double, you do 2d6 mortal wounds, which is crazy. And let's say spell mirror. So this might snipe heroes. Okay, so probably from all we saw right now, my third pick, if I had the spell mirror, the points for it, most likely I won't. And the last one is Gorkamaka's Warcry, cast on a 7, so first one that casts a bit higher. You pick a unit with an 18, roll a die and add the bravery of the caster. Your opponent does the same. If you are higher or equal, the unit gets D3 mortal wounds, and halves his move, run, and charge rolls, and it can only attack last. So this is the problem is like your morale is like 7 on the more boys, which is quite low for a character. And even on your work profit, it's like 8. So you could put probably the Crown of Flames from the Realm of Fire artifacts to get +1 to your bravery. This might work, but still, I really don't. If it only goes off 50% of the time, if it goes off, it's a really good thing. But if you could do it more reliable, like casting on a 7, like even with +2, casting on a 5, you get it 5 out of 6 times, and then most likely more than half of the time. So probably overall in a third of the time it works. So probably only once per game. And I don't know if this is the time where I need it. So this is the reason why I probably won't pick it, sadly, because it could be great. Yeah. And now we have talked about the spells. Now we come to the abilities for the general, and I just want to highlight one here, I guess, which is Walk Hero. All Bonesplitterz heroes add 1 to their charge rolls in 10. Because of their totems, they usually get +2, though we are at +3 to charge without cogs, as always. Yeah, so this is quite good. I would say the other ones I don't really like. Yep, the other ones I don't really like. So there is this Monster Hunter table. If you are within 3 of a monster in your close combat phase, you roll a die. On a 1 or 2, you can pile in 6 inches instead of 3. On a 3 or 4, you can re-roll wound rolls. And on a 5 or 6, if you roll a 6 on a wound roll, you get a mortal wound to the monster in addition to the normal damage, which is really good, I think. So overall, good abilities, but the problem is like you usually do only like 1 damage, no rend. So you have to compensate somehow for this, and this is probably it. But if you can't pick it, it's not that good, and you can only pick it in this 1 mega battalion. And then again, it only works against monsters, which you probably won't see. Like, not that many armies play monsters, so very situational. There are some that play a lot of monsters, but yeah. The other abilities all Bonesplitterz have is like they have always an armor save of 6, even if the opponent has a gazillion rend. And you have a 6 up against mortal wounds too, which like again always works, of course. So you always have a save roll of 6 against anything. Okay, so now as we talked, I like to do the more boys, and I like to do big blocks of them, and I want to do the war dogs and dance around with them and have the spells. But there is one important key piece missing here, and this is the walk. As we see, compared to Iron Jaws, nobody here can walk. And the walk is a crazy good ability because you can stack it and you can have a lot of command points. And yeah, and this makes units really good. And what units does it make especially good? It makes units especially good that have like 2 attacks for 10 points, which is crazy already. And now, if you walk, they have 4 attacks at 20 points. And you can easily walk 3 times. And then they have like 8 attacks. So my more boys, now, if I unleash my walk, they have like, and my buffs are up. Each more boy has 8 attacks, hitting on 3s if the Beast Spirits cast is on, rerolling 1s if the Maniac is on, wounding on 3s and 4s, like 4 attacks wound on 2s, 4 attacks wound on 3s. No rend, okay, this is the downside, but this is crazy good. They can't fight in 2 ranks because they are on 32 mil bases, which is the only downside that would make them like crazy good. So now it's only very good, sort of. And the war dogs, they all sort of always count with +2. One of them even casts with dispels with +1 in 36 inches, and on average you can pick 1 per turn that has an additional +1 to cast and dispel. So and you need 2 drops for this, and for the walk you need a generic orc hero for the 3rd drop, so you are a 3-drop army, and you can pick between either one of Wyvern, which itself has an attack with -2 rend and has 11 wounds, a 4-up save, so it's not that easy to kill compared to the other one, which is only a guy riding on a boar. But the guy on the boar also has an aura that lets you re-roll wounds of 1 to the final topping. So on this, then like attacking on 3 is rerolling once, wounding on 2s and 3s rerolling once, 8 attacks per model. Sounds like we can go to town with this. And to just finish it off, I play a battalion, so I can not only pick the Dispel range as an artifact, but I also can take the Ether Brooch thing there. So on all the time I spend a command point. On a 5-up I don't spend a command point. So if I have 3 command points at the start of the game, I walk 3 times because I fly some stuff around. And in the next round I still have 2 command points, which is okay. I can then, with fixed attacks, sounds okay to me. You probably want to play 2 to 3 big units of 30 of them, and you want to play at least 2 smaller units to build a screen to be safe for some alpha strikes. And the only thing, I guess, you really fear, or there are 2 things you really fear, is probably the Stormcast Dragon because of armor save, and Sequitors because of armor save, and you don't really have rent, which is sad. And the other thing you probably fear is like long range shooting that picks off your heroes. So you probably can think of including a palisade. Yeah, and this is like the way I want to go and explore for my next army. Yeah, like so around like 100 something and a bit war boys, at least 3 war dogs, 1 maniac weird knob, 1 orc boss that can walk as an ally. I think there is potential. It's not a tier 1 army because it's probably a bit lackluster, but I think you can pull it off, and it's probably more not that like it doesn't have that bad of a reputation than if you play against witches. So what is I guess we are sort of at the end of the show right now here. I talked to the tournament organizers of the 2 tournaments in Rostock and Leipzig. They said there is a possibility that I will get the army lists, and then I probably make a show and run down the army lists. So this would then happen the first half of November, and probably I can film something from these tournaments and post it, but no commitment. I don't want to like promise I will do, but I really like to. And yeah, if you have an idea of what tier 2 army you would build and make it tier 1 next, or what you think is like really underestimated, you can write it always in the comments. I'm quite interested to see what is out there. So this was my 40th episode. Thank you for watching, and we see each other again at some time. Bye.